My stepsister lied about me being a prostitute and an addict out of jealousy, destroying my life in the process. It never occurred to me that a single family vacation could completely ruin my relationship with my family, but here I am. At 21, I was a junior in college, working part-time at a coffee shop while maintaining a 3.8 GPA in business administration. My life was far from perfect, but I was managing. That all changed during what should have been a peaceful spring break in Florida, a vacation that became the turning point for everything. In an effort to bring the family closer together, my dad, Greg, 46, and my stepmom, Julia, 43, thought it would be a great idea to share a suite at a beach resort with my stepsister, Rachel, 19. Though Rachel and I weren't enemies, we'd never been close. I was always the afterthought in the family, while Rachel was their golden child. I felt like an outsider, trying too hard to be good enough, while Rachel coasted effortlessly through life as their favorite. The first few days of the trip were awkward but manageable. By ignoring each other, Rachel and I maintained a kind of fragile peace. That truce ended on the third day, when I borrowed her hairbrush without asking. It was a minor mistake, but Rachel completely lost it. Instead of simply telling me not to use her things, she grabbed my entire makeup bag and threw it out the fourth-story window of our suite. My $200 foundation and almost everything I'd packed for the trip were smashed on the concrete below. From that moment on, Rachel stopped speaking to me entirely. It wasn't the typical cold shoulder you'd expect from a teenager. She acted as if I didn't exist. At first, I thought, great, at least she's not throwing more of my stuff out the window. But Rachel's silence wasn't the end of her vendetta, it was just the beginning. Back at home, things became weird. Rachel and Julia began having long, whispered conversations that ended abruptly whenever I entered the room. My dad, Greg, started giving me strange looks, less like anger and more like disappointment, as if I'd done something wrong but he couldn't bring himself to say it. I didn't think much of it at first, but soon Julia's behavior escalated. She began asking oddly specific questions about my schedule, who I was hanging out with, and how I was spending my money. Things got even more invasive. Julia started calling my friends to confirm where I was, and my dad's concerned expressions turned into cold, judgmental stares. Then, one night, my dad barged into my room unannounced, a first for him, and dropped a bombshell that shattered my world. "We need to talk about what you've been doing," he said, standing in the doorway like a judge about to hand down a guilty verdict. Rachel told us everything. The drugs. The prostitution. All of it. For a moment, I thought he was joking. I actually laughed. Me, a perfectionist who color-coded her planner and got anxious if I was 5 minutes late to class, being accused of living a secret double life as a drug addict and a prostitute? It was absurd. But Greg wasn't laughing. He believed Rachel. I tried to defend myself, showing him my bank statements, my work schedule, and even attendance records from my classes to prove I couldn't possibly be living this so-called secret life. But the more evidence I presented, the angrier he became. "Why would Rachel lie about this?" he repeated over and over. "She's worried about you. We're all worried about you." It was surreal. My dad, who'd watched me work tirelessly to succeed, was now accusing me of being a liar. Things spiraled out of control. While I was at class, Julia searched my room for evidence. They tracked my bank transactions, interrogated my friends, and even called my workplace without my knowledge. I only discovered they'd installed tracking software on my phone when Julia confronted me about stopping at a coffee shop during a class break. The final straw came when Greg demanded access to my email and social media accounts. "We need to see who you're talking to," he said, implying they thought I was coordinating with clients. When I refused, he threatened to cut off my tuition and throw me out of the house. It was then that I realized the truth. They were never going to believe me over Rachel. In their eyes, I was already guilty. That night, I packed a bag as quietly as I could, taking only essentials, a few changes of clothes, my laptop, important documents, and the emergency savings I'd been squirreling away. As I walked down the hall, I saw Rachel standing there with a smug grin, as if she'd just won some twisted game. Living at my friend Sarah's apartment was far from ideal. Her place was tiny, and the couch I crashed on felt like a slab of concrete. To make ends meet, I picked up extra hours at the coffee shop, but balancing a 3.8 GPA with 30 hours of work a week while sleeping on a couch was brutal. Meanwhile, Greg sent me one text: "You can come home when you're ready to admit your problems and get help." I didn't reply. The rumors Rachel had started began to spread on campus. Somehow, she'd contacted my freshman year roommate, who shared these fabricated stories with mutual acquaintances. Soon, I was being accused of embezzling money from the Business Students Association, leading to my removal as treasurer. It felt like everything I'd worked for was unraveling. The fallout from my family's betrayal was overwhelming. It felt like I was watching my reputation crumble in slow motion. Professors and peers seemed to look at me differently, and even my academic advisor wanted to have a conversation about my supposed lifestyle choices. I couldn't escape the shadow of the lies my stepsister Rachel had spread. That's when Kyle entered my life. Kyle, 25, was a regular at the coffee shop where I worked, always ordering the same thing: a large Americano with extra shots. Unlike everyone else, who either ignored me or treated me like I was radioactive, Kyle actually talked to me. Not just about coffee or small talk, but really talked. One day, as I handed him his cup, he asked why I always looked so exhausted. For reasons I didn't fully understand at the time, I opened up to him. After my shift ended, we sat in the empty cafe for hours while I spilled everything about Rachel's lies, my parents' betrayal, losing my home, and the rumors that had followed me to school. Kyle listened without interruption, judgment, or skepticism. He simply believed me. For the first time since my life fell apart, someone trusted me without demanding proof or explanations. That simple act of acceptance felt like a lifeline. Kyle lived in his own apartment, working remotely as a software developer. When he learned about my situation, crashing on my friend Sarah's couch in her tiny apartment, he helped me find a small studio of my own. My credit wasn't good enough to secure the lease, so Kyle co-signed it for me. The studio was tiny, barely bigger than my bedroom back home, but it was mine. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of stability. Slowly, Kyle and I grew closer. We spent movie nights watching old comedies on his laptop until we fell asleep. He brought me coffee during late-night study sessions and patiently listened to me rehearse my class presentations. It was the little things, the moments of normalcy, that began to restore my sense of self. 3 months ago, Kyle proposed. It wasn't a grand gesture, just the two of us sitting on the floor of my tiny apartment, eating Chinese takeout. He pulled out a ring, simple and elegant, just like him. My answer was immediate: yes. For the first time in what felt like forever, my life was moving forward in a positive direction. Kyle not only loved and supported me but also knew the full truth about what had happened with my family. That night, we video called his parents to share the news. Their joy and excitement were so genuine, so pure, that it made me ache. The contrast between their warmth and what I'd experienced with my own family was almost too much to bear. A few weeks later, Rachel somehow learned about the engagement. Within days, my phone was flooded with messages from my dad and Julia, my stepmother. Suddenly, they were eager for reconciliation. They talked about family unity and moving forward, but never once did they acknowledge the lies Rachel had told or the pain they'd caused. My dad's message hit me the hardest. Your wedding day should be about family. Don't let pride stop you from inviting everyone. Pride? Did he think this was about pride? This wasn't about something trivial. They had labeled me a drug addict and a prostitute. They had treated me like a criminal in my own home, invading my privacy and interrogating my friends. And they had believed Rachel's lies without giving me a chance to defend myself. Kyle suggested we elope, just the two of us, somewhere quiet and peaceful, far away from the drama. Part of me loved the idea. It would be simple, stress-free, and exactly what we needed to start our lives together. But another part of me wanted a real wedding. Not to appease my family, but to stand in front of everyone and prove that despite everything they did to break me, I'd built a good life. Last week, I started planning the wedding. We're keeping it small, just close friends and family, set for next spring after my graduation. Kyle's family has been incredibly supportive, even offering to host the ceremony in their backyard. His mom accompanied me when I went dress shopping, and when I found a stunning A-line gown with intricate lace details, she teared up. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," she said softly. For a moment, I forgot she wasn't my biological mother. It's funny how sometimes the people who choose to love you end up being more family than the ones you're born into. The hardest part of planning the wedding has been the guest list. Kyle has made it clear that the decision is entirely mine. "Today is about you," he said. "You owe them nothing." He's right, of course. But it doesn't make the decision any easier. Every time I look at the stack of invitations on my desk, my stomach churns. Some of them already have my family's names written on them. How do you invite people to celebrate your joy when they've been the source of so much pain? If I don't invite Rachel, my dad and Julia won't come. And if they don't come, the rest of the family will likely side with them. That's how it's always been. Rachel is their golden child, the one they always choose. Kyle's sister, Emma, 26, has been my unofficial wedding planner and voice of reason. She's been through something similar with her ex's toxic family, so she understands my situation in a way few others can. "Your wedding day is about celebrating love," she told me. "It's not about apologizing for existing." She's right. The day should be about Kyle and me, the life we're building together, the family we're choosing to create. But reminders of what I've lost are everywhere: a mother of the bride dress in a store window, a father-daughter dance song on the radio, the blank spaces in my wedding binder where family photos should go. Even my extended family has started weighing in. My Aunt Susan called yesterday to say, "Family is forever. You need to be the bigger person." And in a long email, my uncle echoed the same sentiment: forgiveness, moving forward, keeping the family together. The passive-aggressive messages on social media started almost immediately. My cousins posted cryptic quotes about loyalty and how blood is thicker than water. It was clear they were all working from the same script, painting me as the villain for not wanting my abuser at my wedding. The irony of their sudden moral outrage wasn't lost on me. During those awful months when I was sleeping on Sarah's couch, juggling extra shifts, and trying to keep my grades up, not a single one of them reached out. When I had to explain to my professors why I couldn't go home for the holidays, they weren't there. And they certainly weren't there on the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why my own family had treated me like a criminal. Lisa, however, was always there, at the center of it all. She didn't just tell one lie. She spun an elaborate web of deceit, carefully crafted to destroy my relationships and isolate me. She watched with a smug smile as I lost my home, my reputation, and my family's trust. Even now, when my life is finally back on track, they still refuse to see the truth. I graduated with honors despite everything. I secured a position at a reputable company in the city and married a wonderful, supportive man. You'd think these accomplishments would speak for themselves, that they'd realize I was never the person Lisa accused me of being. But they remain steadfast in their belief in her lies, unwilling to admit they were wrong. I'd made my decision. My dad and Julia will receive invitations to my wedding, but Lisa will not. What they choose to do with that is entirely up to them. If they decide not to attend because she isn't invited, that's their choice. I'll walk down the aisle alone if I have to, head held high, because I refuse to sacrifice my dignity for the sake of maintaining an illusion of harmony. This isn't about pride or stubbornness. It's about self-respect. My wedding day should be a moment of joy, free from the turmoil and anxiety Lisa has caused. It should be spent surrounded by people who love and support me, not by those who assumed the worst about me without any proof. For once, I'm done being the one to repair the damage. I'm done leading the charge for reconciliation, pretending that their rejection of me didn't hurt, and carrying the burden of their choices. This time, I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing love over toxic family ties, truth over easy lies, and happiness over duty. If that makes me the villain in their version of the story, so be it. Am I doing the right thing? Honestly, I don't know. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I'm making a decision that feels true to who I am and what I deserve. Kyle says he's proud of me for standing my ground. And, for once, I'm proud of myself too. The terrified young woman who packed her bags in the middle of the night has grown into someone stronger, someone who knows her worth. I've learned that love doesn't mean enduring abuse, and that my happiness doesn't have to come second to others' expectations. Maybe this freedom to be myself is the best wedding gift I could give myself. I wish I could say everything has been smooth sailing since my last update 6 months ago, but life has a way of throwing unexpected curveballs. A month ago, Lisa's ex-boyfriend, Eric, reached out to me on Facebook. He said he had something important to share about the rumors Lisa had spread. At first, I didn't want to reply. Kyle and I were focused on wedding preparations, and I didn't want to reopen old wounds. But curiosity got the better of me. What Eric revealed hit me harder than I expected. Apparently, Lisa had a complete meltdown after a fight with him a few weeks ago. Drunk at a party, she confessed everything, including the fact that she had fabricated the entire story about me being a drug addict and prostitute. She admitted she was jealous because she thought I was getting too much attention from boys at her college. That's all it was. Jealousy over a non-existent problem. The kicker? I didn't even go to her school. Eric sent me screenshots of their text messages, where Lisa admitted everything. He even offered to talk to my parents on my behalf, to tell them the truth. But you know what? I don't care anymore. The damage is done. I sat for hours staring at Eric's messages, my mind racing and my heart heavy. When I finally showed Kyle, I broke down in tears, not from sadness, but from pure, unfiltered anger. 3 years of my life were stolen because of her. 3 years of being treated like a criminal by my own family. 3 years of doubting myself and having to rebuild from scratch. I thought having proof would bring me closure, but it only underscored how little my family valued me. They didn't need evidence to believe Lisa's lies. They just accepted them at face value. They tossed me aside without hesitation, without even giving me a chance to defend myself. And now, things have gotten even messier. Somehow, Lisa found out that Eric had contacted me. Out of nowhere, my family began flooding my phone with calls and texts. Julia emailed me lengthy paragraphs about family healing and forgiveness, while my dad left a voicemail that went on for minutes, saying Lisa was really sorry and that she'd been going through a lot. The worst part? None of them actually apologized to me. Not once did they say, "We were wrong," or "We're sorry for not believing you." Instead, their focus was on Lisa's struggles and how she needs her family now more than ever. It was like they were rewriting the entire narrative to paint Lisa as the victim. In the chaos of wedding planning, I realized I hadn't fully explained how Kyle and I got together. It happened during one of the lowest moments of my life. About 6 months after leaving home, I was barely holding it together. I'd stayed up all night finishing a paper, and after just 3 hours of sleep, I dragged myself to the coffee shop for my morning shift. Kyle came in for his usual large Americano with extra shots, but that day, he noticed something different. Instead of just taking his coffee and walking out, he lingered at the counter and asked how I was doing. His voice was filled with genuine concern, and it broke me. Right there at work, I started crying. My manager, Julie, quickly stepped in, telling me to take an early break. Kyle sat with me in the empty cafe while I unloaded everything. At the end of my break, he handed me his phone and said, "Call me if you ever need someone to talk to." It took me weeks to work up the courage to use that number. My trust in people had been completely shattered. But one evening, after another guilt-tripping text from my dad, I finally called him. We talked for hours, well into the early morning. Kyle didn't push or judge, he just listened. When I could no longer bear staying on Sarah's couch, Kyle helped me find my first studio apartment. My parents had cut me off financially, and my damaged credit meant I couldn't get the lease on my own, so Kyle co-signed it. When I had to take a semester off school, he helped me apply for grants and student loans so I could return. For months, we were just friends. Kyle would check over my assignments, help me practice presentations for my business classes, and bring me coffee while I studied late into the night. Slowly, that friendship deepened into something more. Our first kiss happened during the most mundane moment. We were reviewing my business ethics assignment. But somehow, that simple moment made me feel like I was finally on solid ground again. Kyle made me believe I had everything I needed, even when I was struggling to make ends meet in a tiny apartment. He showed me what real support looks like, what it means to be loved for who you are, not for what someone else wants you to be. The latest drama erupted last week. My dad called and told me he wanted to walk me down the aisle, but only if Lisa could attend the wedding. She's changed, he insisted. It would mean so much to her to be there. Once again, it was all about Lisa. Her feelings. Her happiness. I finally snapped. For the first time, I told my dad exactly how I felt. I reminded him of his conditional love, his constant favoritism toward Lisa, and how he had let her destroy my life without ever questioning her lies. If Lisa's attendance means more to you than being there for your daughter, I said, then maybe you shouldn't come at all. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When my dad finally responded, his tone was cold. He accused me of tearing the family apart and said I needed to let go of the past. Julia chimed in later, echoing the same sentiment: real family forgives and forgets. We're a package deal. Through all of this, Kyle's family has been my saving grace. Last weekend, his parents threw a small backyard engagement party for us, inviting only close friends and family. Kyle's dad gave a heartfelt speech that brought everyone to tears, and his mom created a beautiful photo montage of our journey together, starting as friends and growing into a couple. Watching them celebrate our love with such sincerity opened my eyes to what true family looks like. Wedding preparations are going smoothly now that the drama is behind us. We found the perfect reception venue, a quaint garden with a vintage greenhouse. Kyle's mom has been teaching me their family recipes, wanting to pass down something meaningful to our future children. Emma, Kyle's sister and my maid of honor, has been an incredible source of strength. She shared her own experiences with toxic family relationships, reminding me that prioritizing my mental health doesn't make me selfish. Last week, I had my final dress fitting. My best friend Sarah, Kyle's mom, and Emma came with me. When I looked in the mirror, surrounded by women who truly cared about me, I didn't feel the absence of Lisa or Julia. Instead, I felt grateful for the family I had chosen and the one that had chosen me. Kyle's dad will walk me down the aisle, not as a replacement for my father, but as someone who has shown me what unconditional parental love looks like. Our guest list is short but meaningful. Everyone invited has been there for me through my darkest moments. After the wedding, Kyle and I are relocating to Seattle for his new job. His company is helping with the move, and we've already secured a beautiful apartment. It's a fresh start in every sense: a new city, new opportunities, and a life far removed from the toxicity of my old one. As we plan for the future, we've started looking at homes in the Seattle suburbs. Kyle talks about building the kind of family we both wished we had growing up. It feels surreal, like a dream slowly becoming reality. The feeling is thrilling, terrifying, and perfect all at once. Yesterday, I finally blocked my entire family on every platform: social media, email, and phone numbers. It's something I should have done years ago. No more guilt-inducing messages. No more emotional manipulation. No more excuses like, "But she's family." If I'm honest, do I miss my family? Yes. But I miss the version of them I thought I had: the father who taught me how to ride a bike, not the one who assumed I was a drug addict without any evidence. I miss the stepmother who used to help me with my homework, not the one who treated me like a criminal and searched through my belongings for proof of crimes I didn't commit. People like to say, blood is thicker than water, but I'm done using that as a justification to tolerate mistreatment. Some extended family members have reached out, urging me to reconsider. But if I regret anything, it's not cutting ties, it's the years I spent trying to earn the affection of people who would never have chosen me in the first place. Last week, the wedding invitations were sent out. My dad, Julia, and Lisa's names weren't on them. The guest list is small, but every single person on it genuinely cares about me. They are the people who stood by me when my own family didn't. They are the ones who supported me unconditionally, who offered encouragement without expecting anything in return. Someone recently asked if I ever think about what might have happened if I had simply forgiven them and moved on. Honestly, I do think about it sometimes. But then I remember Lisa's smug smile as I left the house that night. I remember my dad assuming the worst about me without a shred of evidence. I remember Julia rifling through my things and calling my workplace to dig up dirt that didn't exist. And now, knowing it was all because Lisa was jealous, because she thought I was getting attention she felt entitled to, it only solidifies that cutting ties was the right decision. Kyle likes to remind me that I underestimate my own strength, and maybe he's right. I was once a scared girl sleeping on a friend's couch, wondering if life would ever feel normal again. Now, I'm marrying an incredible man, starting a promising career, graduating with honors, and experiencing true, unconditional love from the family I've chosen. To the person who asked if I worry about regrets, yes, sometimes I do. But I worry more about the guilt I would feel if I allowed my family to continue controlling and hurting me. Walking away from people who only love you when it's convenient for them is one of the hardest and bravest things you can do. I'm content with how everything has turned out. Our wedding is just 6 weeks away. It won't be the big, traditional wedding I dreamed of as a child, no mother of the bride speech, no father-daughter dance, no sprawling family portraits. But it will be real. The people who will be there are the ones who supported me, believed in me, and chose me. I'm done trying to mend a family that never wanted to be healed. I'm done being the one who's always expected to understand, forgive, and put everyone else's feelings above my own. I'm done being Lisa's backup daughter, the one who's only valued when she doesn't require attention. This is my final update because Lisa is no longer the main character in my story. This isn't about Julia, my dad, or the family that didn't choose me. This is about the family Kyle and I are creating. It's about the love I found in the unlikeliest of places. It's about the strength I didn't know I had. In 6 weeks, I'll marry the man who truly loves me. For the first time in years, I'm not bracing myself for the other shoe to drop. As Kyle and I begin a new life in a new city, I'm not running from anything. I'm just living, loving, and finally free. To everyone who has supported me and followed this journey, thank you. Your encouragement gave me the strength to stand my ground. If you're dealing with toxic family members, know this, it's okay to leave. It's okay to make your own decisions and find happiness on your own terms. Sometimes, the family we build is more real than the one we're born into. And not only is that okay, it's beautiful.